Welcome back to another episode of Bon Voyage Besties with your hosts, Rosa and Rachel. And lately, we've been deep in conversation about how to use points and miles to cover our 2026 travels. So you can imagine how excited we are about today's guests. We're thrilled to welcome Rachel Lipson, travel writer, educator, and true points and miles pro. She's the founder of Brooklyn Family Travelers and the author of The Point, a Substack bestseller that teaches readers how to travel meaningfully and affordably, often entirely on credit card points without sacrificing style, culture, or incredible experiences. Rachel has become a go-to voice for travelers who want rich, authentic adventures without the rich person budget. Sounds right up my alley. You're speaking my language. In today's episode, we're going to be diving into how to travel better for less using points and miles. So expect a practical, inspiring conversation on making travel more affordable without giving up the good stuff. From how to get started to the real ways to points and unlock unforgettable trips. Think free hotel stays, business class flights, and more. This episode is your guide to traveling more while spending less. Let's get into it.
Rachel, welcome to the show. We're so excited to have you here.
Hi, thank you so much, Rachel, Rosa.
Of
Hello,
course.
Rachel.
Two Rachels on this episode, which means it's going to be an awesome one. So, to get started, can you tell us a little bit about how you and your family first got into the points and miles game? I feel like everybody's journey is a bit different with starting it because I know all I knew was starting a travel credit card, and I'm like, oh, hey, I earn points.
Yeah, well, I used to put all my spending on one card, and I was so excited when I would get like one free trip. I thought that was like really amazing. I had one free trip in like 2 years, 3 years to take my whole family of four somewhere. And when I kind of started to get into home swapping and got into traveling more, I kind of phased myself out of my other business that I've had for many, many years, phased myself out of the day to day. And I had so much more time on my hands and my family started traveling. And I was like, I'm going to go broke if I just keep paying for all this travel without finding a solution. So we started doing home swapping. And then I was like, okay, I can stay anywhere in the world, but I need to get there. And then I started to kind of take deep dives into points and learn more about it. And the rest is history.
So cool. That's amazing. I love the whole concept of reward travel, like with the free flights. I have one of the United credit cards, and I've gotten a couple free flights out of that. And I always feel so proud of myself whenever I do redeem those awards. But I know for some people, they can be like totally like overwhelmed because there's just so much information out there. I know whenever I try to even like read it and consume it, I get overwhelmed super quickly and just rage quit. So for someone who feels totally overwhelmed by points and miles, where do you recommend that they even begin?
Yeah, I think it can feel overwhelming because there's a lot of jargon in the points and miles world. There's a lot of like abbreviations. There's a lot of stuff that it feels like you need to know before you can even read the information out there. And so I think one of the things is to look for any kind of explanations that are approachable, that are not using the kind of jargon, and just think about maximizing every dollar you're spending to make sure that each dollar you're spending is earning you points that you can use for travel. So it's focusing on kind of transferable points, which are points that can transfer out of your bank to hotels and airlines. So you can book hotels and flights directly and not feeling like you have to learn it all immediately. I mean, there's a learning curve to everything. And with points and miles, it can be pretty steep. So I think it's important to keep in mind that there will be things you don't know, and there will be times when you make mistakes. And that's all part of learning and getting started.
And that's a good reminder too about the making mistakes parts, because I know in one of our prior episodes, we kind of talked about some points and miles. And one of the things we mentioned during that episode is there's no such thing as a bad redemption. And I remember when I first started to use my points and miles to travel, I was so excited because I was like, oh, I just got a free flight to like Florida, but I used like 40,000 points. And then I would see on social media, people are like using 40,000 points to like fly business class to Europe. And I felt like such a failure because I was like, here I am just using my miles for like some basic economy seats, like where people are using international. So I know there's a lot of misconception out there, but what are some other misconceptions when it comes to award travel?
Yeah, I think that there are a few things. I think one is people get kind of hung up on like if they're going to take flights and they're going to redeem points for flights, that they need to put their spending on an airline card, or that if they, stay at a particular hotel brand, that they need to focus on that hotel brand in and put all their spending on that card in order to get free travel. I think that's a big one. I mean, I kind of alluded to it before, but that idea of putting all of your spending on one card to get enough points, I think is something that is a misconception. That you have to like go all in with one brand, all in with one airline, all in with one hotel. I think that that is not often the way to go. I think, really thinking about earning points that you can take to a particular airline and book a trip that way, or to a hotel brand and book that way, is going to be much better for you than trying to put everything on one card. And I think another is just thinking that it's like for other people. I think a lot of people think like points and miles are not for them. They think that it's like too much math, or it's too complicated, or it's just for like business travelers, or it can't work if you have kids, or kind of on the flip side, it's just for people who want to travel business class, or just people who want to stay in 5-star hotels. And then there's people who think it's only for people who are penny pinching, who don't have any money, who are really struggling to make ends meet. It's none of these things. It's for anybody who is interested in using points for travel. It's not like just for people who need them to travel. Sometimes it can be really great to take your points and use them for a business class flight. But other times you might just want to book a trip to Florida, and that's, an economy, and if the points hit you there, that's what they're for.
Yeah, I love hearing you say that, because I know for me, sometimes I feel the same way Rosa does. I'll beat up myself if I feel like points incorrectly, in air quotes. Last year, I ended up having to use a lot of my United miles because as a high school teacher, I'm stuck during peak periods. So I was seeing my family down in Florida, and the only way I could afford that ticket was by using my miles. Otherwise, it would have been an insane amount. So for me, paying that $11 instead felt like a big reward to me. And I like the idea that points and miles is for anyone at any time. Like sometimes I'll see people all swanky in business class, and I'm like, I'm a high school teacher. They're probably earning 5 times my salary. I'll never hit like the spend that I need to get this. So just hearing that the points and miles game is inclusive and it's not meant to shut anyone out makes me feel good.
Yeah, I think it is important to remember that there's time is a resource too. So however much time you're going to spend to try to find the flight that you're looking for, that's, time is money too. And if you're busy, that might not be where you want to spend your time. But I do think that it is possible, even if you're on a limited budget, or even if you aren't spending significant amounts of money, to be able to fly business class and be able to take those trips. Because if you're focusing on opening a new card, earning the welcome bonus, that's a way that you don't need to. If let's say a business class flight is going to cost you on a good redemption, like you were saying, that 40,000, you see people going business class to Europe, maybe 60,000. Let's say that 60,000 points. If you had to spend $60,000 to get that, that's a lot of money. So 60,000 points for a one-way ticket to Paris, you have had to spend that much money. That's a lot. However, if instead you're putting $5,000 on a new credit card that's going to earn you a 75,000 point welcome bonus, that's a big difference, and that's accessible to more people. So I think it's also important to remember that you don't have to have hundreds of thousands of dollars of spending to be able to generate the points that you need to take those trips. You just have to be strategic about the cards that you open and where you put your spending.
And that's a good mindset too, because I know for myself, especially when we travel as a family, it's 3 of us, so we're multiplying everything by 3. So for me specifically, I'd rather be able to maximize my points, whether that means getting cheaper economy seats and coming out less out of pocket for my expenses. And having to use my miles that way, as opposed to just like treating myself like on a business class seats. We can take more trips, obviously in economy, usually, and maximize our points that way. Or maybe sometimes we help offset our costs by using some of the points or our miles for hotels or maybe activities. So at the end of the day, like my goal is to be able to travel as often as we possibly can as a family, but also within our means. So using points and miles to offset our added cash value is definitely a big bonus for me. So I know you kind of touched on one great way to be able to do that is by these welcome bonuses when you're signing up for a credit card. But are there some other tips for a beginner specifically that they want to get into the points and miles games?
Yeah, I think there are lots of ways that you can earn points. That sometimes people just want to have one credit card. And of course, it will mean that it'll just take you longer to accrue the points. But there are shopping portals that you can use. So there are various shopping portals. Having those are helpful. So a shopping portal would mean you're going to, just to be clear, you're going to shop at places you normally would shop at. But instead of just going to the website directly, you go to a portal first. You click through the portal. Maybe you have an account already set up. Click through the portal. You shop. You're spending your money through your credit cards. You're earning credit card points. And then on top of that, you can be earning points that you can then transfer, that can be transferred then to your credit card. So you're earning two kinds of points at the same time. And that is a really helpful way to earn more points. So for example, there's one shopping portal I use that earns 20x back, so 20 points per dollar. Sometimes, I've pet store. I have one dog now. I had two dogs. One just passed away. I still say I
I'm
have two dogs.
sorry.
But, like, it's okay. He
I'm
was almost
sorry.
15, so it's a lot of times, a lot of years of saying
Mhm.
two dogs. But I would always still have a dog. Love her. I'll buy my pet food on the dog food on the days when it's 20x. So I'll wait. Maybe I won't get it when it's at 2x or 3x because those numbers can fluctuate from day to day. And so I'll just wait until it's 20x and then I get the dog food. And so that'll be one way I can get points. And there are times when there will be something like open a high yield savings account or open some sort of account online. It often happens with financial services, but there are other kinds of accounts that you can sometimes open, maybe a membership or a subscription to something, and it might have significant points back. And that can be a really helpful way. And another thing to consider is just taking trips. Sometimes if you can't find a good value with points, I'll skip using the points. If you can afford it, it can make sense to save your points, have them offset a trip where you can get farther with them, and instead just pay cash for the flight. Paying cash meaning using your credit card versus paying points. And then when you do that, you're earning points. So remember, when you're spending points, you're not earning points, but when you're spending cash, you are. So you can take those opportunities where now you are spending money, which maybe you didn't want to do, but at least you can look at that as a point earning opportunity and take those points and then use them for something else in the future.
And I love what
Yeah.
you said too about these are everyday expenses, because I think that's one misconception that people have is that they have to use their credit card and hit these big spends. But if you're using it, let's say like a debit card where you're just purchasing things that you can actually obviously pay because you want to be financially responsible. Despite what we say on this podcast, sometimes we want you to be able to be financially responsible. So just spending money on your everyday expenses, whether it's grocery, like same thing. I use a shopping portal, and when I go to order on Instacart, I go through the portal. It'll redirect me to the app, and then I'm using one of my credit cards that gives me like 5 times per dollar. So I'm earning points on my everyday expenses. These are things that I have to buy. And then obviously I'm gaining points on it and miles, and then just paying my credit card and all that stuff on a timely manner to make sure that we're on top of our credit. So I think people sometimes think that having a credit card can make them a little bit financially irresponsible if you're
Never.
using it the if you're using
I
it the
don't
right
condone
way
that.
and not for splurges. I mean, you can splurge too, but just be responsible.
I like my painting that I got this weekend.
And you got points for it. So
I did.
It evens out.
Yeah, and I also really like, Rachel, what you said too about booking a trip with cash and like with the idea of saving for an even bigger trip, because I'm kind of doing that this year actually. So I'm seeing friends in London in February, and the price of the flight I could pay up front, and with my credit card I get something like either 7 miles on the dollar or 9 miles on the dollar. It's a pretty big leap, and I know my friends also want to go to Italy at some point in the summer, and being a teacher, that peak travel, it can be very expensive. So I was like, you know what, let me just pay for the London flight that's like $800 times 7 or times 9, and I could then put my miles towards this bigger flight later, which is probably going to be a lot more. So that's definitely a strategy I don't feel is talked about very much, but very valuable and very valid.
Yeah, I think people get excited sometimes when they see a flight that's like 5,000 points or 6,000 points and, or miles. And it's not that that's not likely. Yes, it's a low number of points. But then if you actually toggle over to cash, the flight might be $80, $100. And then it's kind of like, well, was that? I mean, maybe it still is, it could still be worth it. You can decide. But sometimes it just really makes sense to really consider what the cash value is and then what your financial situation is. Because what you were saying before, I fully believe another misconception that people think is that people who are into points and miles are in debt. And it's so interesting to me because actually it's really hard to be into points and miles if you're in debt because you can't get approved for credit cards, or it's very hard to get approved for credit cards. I shouldn't say you can't, but it's very hard. Pay off your credit card in full every month, and that will open more opportunities to be able to get more cards. So actually being financially responsible is something that is really important and kind of essential for anything involving points and miles.
And that's very true too about hitting those spends and being financially responsible. But aside from like the day-to-day purchases, let's say like grocery shopping or maybe like gas, what are some creative but responsible ways to hit those minimum spend without buying things that you don't need?
There are a few things that you can do. One is to prepay bills. So I'll sometimes put things like my health insurance, because I'm a small business owner, so we pay our own insurance. I'll put my health insurance or homeowners insurance or any kind of, we've paid our cable bill. We still have cable. We paid our cable bill, our phone bills. I mean, it's a trade-off. You have to make sure then that you can cover that expense at the end of the month. So again, you have to be thoughtful about how your cash flow looks. But if you can cover those expenses at the end of the month, sometimes it does make sense to pay ahead for a bill so that you can reach the spend. That can be really helpful. Another thing that people don't realize is you can pay federal taxes on a credit card and you have to pay a small fee, but it can be really worth it if it means you're getting a welcome bonus. So doing that calculation to figure out how much you're earning from putting the taxes on that bill, on that card, and how much you're paying by paying that fee and look to see if it makes sense.
Yeah, and that's smart too. I know I recently did that. So I applied for a business credit card and I needed to hit a pretty high spend amount that I was like, I don't know if I'm actually going to be able to hit this in order to get the welcome bonus. But my daughter's in college and this is right around the time when normally we have to pay for a portion of her tuition. And normally I do like monthly installments, but I was like, wait a minute, I can put this on my credit card. And like you said, there was a fee. I think they charged maybe like a 3% or something like that transaction fee. But when I did the calculations versus the amount of miles that I was going to get for hitting that bonus, plus I was going to get points for every dollar spent on her tuition, I was like, this is a no-brainer. So I ended up using my credit card to pay my kids like college tuition bill and like racked up a ton of miles that next year, hopefully we're going to take a nice little family vacation.
That's great. Oh, that's a great story. I'm so happy to hear that.
Exactly.
I
And like
love
you
that.
said, it's all about being responsible and paying for things that you can also pay and have the funds for, because that will give you the opportunity to be able to apply for another credit card. I know during another episode, we talked about different strategies when it comes to applying for credit cards and be strategic. I know depending on the bank, sometimes they're a little bit more finicky when it comes to approval if you apply for multiple credit cards. But do you have like maybe any tips or like a good like starter one that people that are just starting off can look into?
I think it's important, kind of back to what I was saying in the beginning, to focus on transferable points. So looking at cards that have points that can transfer to airlines and hotels versus having to use the bank portal in order to redeem your points. And that's a really big difference and can make a huge difference when you're going to redeem them. Usually there will be some sort of annual fee associated with a card like that. There are very few that have no annual fees that allow you to transfer points. There are some, but not very many. So being comfortable with paying an annual fee if you have to in order to be able to do that can be worth it. Let's see. Also, keeping in mind, really focusing on your credit score and just making sure you do things like make sure you don't close your oldest card. Check to see which card that you have is the oldest card you've ever had. And that's a card that you want to make sure you hold on to, because that will really affect your credit score and drop your credit score significantly if you close it. And so it's very helpful to keep that open and then focusing on the transfer partners. Sometimes it makes sense to just make sure that the card that you are opening has airlines and hotels that you want to go to and want to stay at or fly on, or looking to see if they're affiliated with the airlines that you do like, so that you have an opportunity to use them when it comes time to redeem them.
And I like what you said too, because that's a good point. I feel like people don't talk about that, but the annual fees, I know for some credit cards could be pretty hefty. I know when I opened my new account, my business account, I had like sticker price shock when I first saw the annual fee, but then I started looking at all the different perks that they were offering, plus again, the welcome bonus. And I was like, I feel pretty confident that every year I can maximize my benefits so that the annual fee that I'm putting, essentially I'm kind of getting back in a way, whether it's, for instance, they offer like a hotel credit every year. They offer if you use like Uber or anything like that, they give you like a credit. They even have like credit for like your streaming services. So at the end of the day, I feel like, yes, it's a pretty high annual fee, but I'm maximizing the benefits as best as possible. So I personally do feel comfortable paying that now. But when I first looked at it, I was like, do I really want to do this? Is it really, really
Yeah.
worth it?
Yeah, annual fees can be tricky like that. And I think as long as you are focusing on either you look at it and you say, this is the price I have to pay to be able to have this card and get this bonus and do what I need to do with it. And just like make peace with that, or really focus on using those perks. And a lot of the cards have perks that far offset the annual fee. So it's beyond, you'll get more back than you spent if you can front load the expense of paying the fee. If it's for things that you otherwise wouldn't have bought, then it's kind of a question mark as to whether or not you're actually getting the annual fee back. But if it's things that you want it anyway, if you like to go to Lululemon and you have the card that gets you $75 a quarter at Lululemon, that's fun. And so sometimes I think about this stuff as it's kind of fun. It's like as if someone gave you a gift card and it's like, go shopping. Of course, you paid for it already, so you just have to remember that. But if it means that you get the bonus and you get airline status or you get hotel status and you get lounge access and all these things, then that can work out. It can work out in your favor.
And that's definitely a good perspective too about that, because like you said, at the end of the day, it's like every person's situation is a little bit different. Maybe there are some benefits that I find beneficial. I know Rachel and I kind of joked about this the other day when we're talking about the lounge access that you get as a perk with some of the credit cards.
Yes.
But then
I love my lounges.
if you can't get into the lounge, like, is it even a perk if you can't even access the lounge itself? So again, it's kind of weighing out what's a benefit to you and whether or not it's really worthwhile for you to, one, make the expenditure, and two, have a hefty annual fee, because that could be something to also consider. And I feel like that could be another misconception that people don't talk about. They're like, oh yeah, we got this free flight. But yeah, you have all of these other factors that you have to consider as well.
Yeah, because some of them can be quite expensive.
I think it's also, some of those fees are really expensive. And I think it's important too to remember that, you have the card that has the high annual fee. It doesn't necessarily mean that that card is going to earn you the most points on your everyday spending. So some of those cards that have really high annual fees really don't earn you much. And the benefits that you get from them, you don't get from spending on them. You get them just from paying the annual fee and having the card. So that's where having multiple cards can be helpful.
Now, can you think of a situation where you'll tell someone not to sign up for a card with the sign-on bonus?
Yeah, I mean, I tell people not to sign up for cards all the time. The amount of times people will text me or email me or send me a message, they're like, how about this one? How about this one? Because the truth is you're getting kind of inundated with marketing around this stuff. And the more you start to focus on it, the more you're going to get and the more you notice when you see them. And whether it's the airline flight attendant that's walking around with an application that sounds enticing, or whether it's the ads in the airport or just anywhere you are, your email box, your mailbox, there's just ads coming in everywhere. And there's obviously a lot of marketing behind these cards. And the problem is that there's a real strategy. And if you just kind of go and open things as they look exciting to you, you'll miss out on other opportunities and they'll block you out of getting a welcome bonus from this card or that card. For example, there's one bank that has their top tier card, which is a very high annual fee. If you just go out and you get that personal card, you no longer are going to be eligible for the lower tiered cards in that card family. So if there's the one that has like a really small fee and the one that's like a middle fee and like the highest one, you go right for the highest one. Now you can't get the other welcome bonuses. So you're setting yourself back. So doing things in order can be really helpful. And then there's other rules, like all these banks have rules. And if you don't know the rules, then you can just very quickly kind of back yourself in a corner where you're shut off from getting a lot of different bonuses.
And that's a good
really
point
true.
too about making sure you understand each bank has different policies and also reading the fine prints, because I know sometimes if you sign up for a credit card, let's say they have like a welcome bonus, maybe there's a restriction on one of their other cards where maybe you're not eligible to receive that welcome bonus if it's within like a certain time frame that you're like applying for one of their different cards. So definitely making sure that you're reading the fine print, because the last thing you want is to go into it thinking that you're eligible to get all these welcome bonus and then you hit the minimum spend and then you got nothing.
Then you have nothing. That's like the worst ever. Absolutely. And it's so
Yeah.
true what Rosa's saying. Like, read the fine print, because sometimes, like, you can't open multiple cards with the same bank in a limited amount of time. You'll get denied, and then that's on your credit score, and that can limit future opportunities. It's always important to double and triple check. And I love that you say just like not to open every single card imaginable, because sometimes I feel like if I'm not hitting every single sign up bonus, that I'm doing points and miles wrong. And that's just not true.
No, it's not true. You have to be strategic. You really do have to be strategic. And also just know that you're, either do the work yourself to read that fine print, or make sure you have a trusted source that's helping you figure it out, because it's a lot to know and it's a lot to learn. And it's not necessarily um, you know, it's not something that you maybe even can find out by calling the bank. They may not have the answer for you. This is stuff that's in kind of, people spend a lot of time just kind of scouring the web for data points of this and that to find like what the rules are and how things have changed, and things can change really fast without any notice. And so another thing is to just like not blame yourself if you make a mistake, because I just like we talked about that with the redemptions, but with all of it, there's so much to know that it's not your fault if you don't know it. Even if you've been trying really hard, and even if you've like whatever it is, you could be under a rock and you haven't been paying attention at all, or if you've been like really trying to steep yourself in it and you still feel confused, it's like by design. It's not meant to be easy and straightforward, or everybody would do it. So it's not, it's normal.
I always tell myself too, with growing on Instagram, when that gets tough, like if everybody could do it, they would, so not to beat yourself up if you trip up. I mean, I'm not so harsh on my students if they can't write a 20-page essay. So if someone can't get a first
Yeah.
class flight with Emirates on a limited amount of points, like, hey, it's not your fault. It's all good. So, Rachel, you run Brooklyn Family Travelers, and I think it's such a really cool concept, because I know particularly for families, travel can be quite steep. So, what advice do you give to families who think that maybe points and miles isn't accessible for them? Because we've talked about how it really is something for everyone, but some people still may feel shut out because they're like, instead of buying one ticket, I have to buy 4 or 5 tickets, and that's a lot of points.
Yeah, it's a lot of points. I think it comes back to being strategic about opening the cards and making sure you're getting comfortable with having more cards. I think people get really nervous about having more and think that it's going to mess up their credit. And I think kind of back to the original misconceptions, that's a big one, that people think having more credit cards will damage their credit. It will damage your credit if you don't pay your bills. But otherwise, having more credit cards can actually make your credit score shoot way up, because a big part of your credit score is your credit utilization, which is how much credit is available to you versus how much you use. And so if you have a lot of credit available to you, and ideally by having multiple credit cards versus just one card with a high credit line, because then you've been able to earn welcome bonuses from each of those cards, then you're looking at a situation where your utilization goes way, way down and your credit score goes way up. And when you have a family that you're trying to get, like, I'd say like my kids are freeloaders. I mean, they're 10 and 12 and they like don't work. They can't,
Poor
they
little
can't
baby.
like
My daughter's
contribute.
20 and she's still
Credit cards, they
freeloads.
can't do
I'm
anything.
38 and I'm
So
still a
it doesn't
freeloader.
get any cheaper. It does not get any cheaper.
But I always, they can't contribute to any of this stuff. They're just, just spending on them. So
That's
he's just
hilarious.
getting more comfortable with having more cards and being able to get those welcome bonuses and make a plan for when you're going to use them. Maybe that's the time when you really do want to be thoughtful about not using your points for a domestic ticket. And maybe that is a time when you want to use them for a bigger family trip. And then really focusing on learning about the redemptions and understanding how to get the value. Because I think for busy families, it can be really appealing to just use the portal and just get that 1 cent per point and call it a day. And that's the portal, meaning, going into the bank and going into like the bank's travel and booking the travel through there. That's just, you're really undervaluing your points when you do that. And so I think families being willing to take the extra step and learn how to transfer their points, how to get the best value, how to know when you get the best value, that's going to really help to make your points go farther, so that you can take all of your people and your family on the trips, even if they're not able to contribute.
So I'm curious, Rachel, what has been one of your favorite like travel redemption for your family?
I love these stories. They're my favorite.
Oh, that's a good question. I mean, look, the one flight that was out, it's always like a bucket list flight that people talk about, was the Emirates A380 from Milan to New York was my favorite. The best part about that flight, so the Emirates A380, it's funny because the points and miles world like really dovetailed with my son's obsession with planes, which was so I'm like into the
I
points and
love
miles, and he's really into like
that. Aw.
aviation. This is really cute. So he can like recognize any plane like in the sky, and he could tell you what kind of plane it is, and he knows. Anyway, so he was very excited about the A380, and so I know a lot of facts about it, including it's the largest commercial airliner. It's a double decker, or is it a double decker? I think it's a double decker. Yes. And okay, what's amazing about it, I could be wrong about that. I can't even remember right now. It's also late here.
We
So,
need your
but
son on
anyways,
the podcast.
Yeah,
I know.
he can
Where is
help me.
he? I'm
He
like,
can help me get
I'm
over my
rusty.
fear of flying. I need
Oh,
someone who
yeah.
loves planes to be like, Rachel, there's nothing to be scared of. This
Yeah,
plane
he's
is
fine.
beautiful. It's Emirates. I'm telling you, I fly business class with Emirates. My fear of flying will be fixed. But
It
anyway,
will
keep
be fine.
going.
Okay, so what's amazing about this too is when you fly business class Emirates, business or first class Emirates from Milan to New York, you board the plane from the lounge. They open like a red tape and let you through when it's time to get on the plane. So
That's
there's
so
no,
cool.
yeah, so there's no looking at your watch to try to figure out or your phone to try to figure out what time it is and do you need to go back to the gate? And then that jarring feeling you have of like you were in this like bougie lounge and now you've got to go from that to like the airport terminal, everything's
The
crazy and
chaos.
loud and like chaos. And so you get to go straight. And then you don't have to time it and wonder how far are you from the gate. They just say, oh, Mrs. Lipson, come with me, and just walk right into business class, and you don't even walk and see economy, like none of it. It's so funny. So that's great. And
Like, bye bye, economy
I
folks.
mean,
Bon
maybe quick.
voyage! I
Well,
can go right
maybe
from the
they like,
lounge.
yeah.
Oh, that sounds like
See,
heaven. Oh my gosh. I
see
would
you
do
in
that
9
every
hours.
flight.
I mean, and then they have a bar on board. So you can go, I mean, you might have seen pictures of this or if you've ever flown, I mean, it's amazing. Like there's a bar that's just for business and first class passengers, and you can just go like hang out in the bar while you're on the plane. I mean, it's really something. So that was really special experience. But there's like I always think about this. Like sometimes I like to take a step back because there's the excitement of these like redemptions and these like really incredible trips with like this airplane or this bougie thing that I got to do or this thing that's like was such a good redemption. I get so excited about it. But then there's the other side of like the actual trip. And the whole point is to take the trip. The whole point is like the places you're going, the things you're doing. So I always like try to remember that and remind other people about that too, that that's the goal. And if you can make make the journey like part of the adventure. It's like that makes it more fun and it makes it exciting. But some of the best trips we've had, we flew economy and got to where we were going, and it was just the best time. And we like loved where we were. So, it's not all or nothing. It can be a balance.
I
And
love
I
that.
love that. I love that mindset, like you said, because you can have the best of both worlds. You can fly one day first class Emirates, and the next day you're, sitting in the back row economy in United. So it's
Coming
like,
to Newark. Welcome to Newark Airport.
like you said,
Oh,
it's
God.
about getting to your destination, and hopefully you're enjoying your trip. You're getting there using less money, because I feel like for myself, I know again, as a family, whenever we're traveling, multiplying everything by 3, it gets really, really expensive. So like I always try to save money as much as possible. Like I personally rather take maybe 3 or 4 trips a year as opposed to like 2 big ones, because I'm putting more cash out there, or maybe using more miles to get to a destination. So it just really depends on your particular style and what your particular needs. Or maybe you are that person. Maybe you can only take one big trip for the year and you want to go all out and you're saving all your points and miles to make that happen. So I feel like, when it comes to travel, everyone's in a different journey and our lifestyle's completely different. So there's no such thing as doing points and miles wrong.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, definitely. And I love like what you said about it being a balance, because like you were talking about earlier, sometimes I feel like, air quotes again for the non-video version, that I'm doing travel wrong because I'm not redeeming all these business class flights. But really, I've had so many amazing trips that I was able to take because I was flying economy. If I was using my points just for business class, I don't think I'd be able to fly to Europe as often as I do. So to have those memories over in Crete, or to have those memories in Italy, my flight to Japan, I flew that in economy and used some miles to like make it 50% off, but it was so worth it for me to get to Japan. And it was about the experience when I got there. So again, everybody's needs are different. Travel looks different to everybody. And if it's worth it to you, it's worth it to you, because it is about more travel and getting to that destination. And if, points and miles miles open that door for you, then great.
And going back to one of the things that you said at the beginning, I know for some people, the points and miles, coming up with a strategy or even getting started could be a little bit overwhelming because there's so much information out there. Maybe they don't know what credit card is best for them, or maybe they just really don't know where to start. So, what would you say would be some of the simplest, most beginner friendly action that someone can take today to start moving towards their first points and mile funded trip?
Yeah, I think there is so much information out there and it really can be overwhelming. I think as soon as you kind of start to look, I always say like find a trusted source. I think that starting small is okay. Like we've been talking about that, but focus on one trip, focus on one card, branch out a little bit from one thing you have. If you've always used one card, reach out and think about opening another card and get advice around that, whether it's switching your spending, starting to use a portal when you didn't use a portal before, the shopping portal, and then not using the travel portal for booking. So it's those things, like those little shifts, and then really taking time to kind of familiarize yourself with how to transfer points, looking at for trips that maybe you're not even planning to take, just to practice. You can get rusty really fast. I find if I go through a period of time where I'm not trying to book anything and then I go to book, I'm like, ooh, I haven't booked anything in a while. I'm like, I forgot how much this stuff is. I was writing something today. I was like, I don't even remember there's just so much going on. I don't know. Things change all the time. It's a lot to keep track of. So I think just starting with something, starting small, knowing you're not going to know everything, and making sure you have a trusted source to get your info.
Yeah, absolutely. Like that's like a big important thing because it changes all the time, and I feel like the values of these points change all the time too. Like you said, it can be, it can just change on a dime.
Well, so points aren't regulated, so that's something that's just important to know. It's a little bit nerdy to talk about, but points are not regulated, so it means that if they're going to change your interest rates or something like that with cash, there has to be some notification. There's announcements about it. There's press releases. There's all kinds of things that happen where you get notified and you find out how things are changing. When it comes to points, things can change anytime with no notice. So, in the sort of points world, you find out about it when all of a sudden there's all these rumblings. All of a sudden you see that now, instead of being 50,000 points to fly to Paris, it's 60,000 points, or instead of it being 60, it's 70. These things can change all the time. And so those are called devaluations, and that can happen really overnight. It can happen anytime and without notice. It's also a reminder to spend your points because they aren't getting any more valuable when they're sitting in your account.
And that's so true too, because we talked about this in another episode. Granted, if you are trying to save your points for a bigger trip or a larger redemption, then be smart about it. But there's no point in earning all these points just to kind of let them, sit there and not use them, because like you said, they change all the time, and maybe you might be able to get $1 for your points or whatever the conversion might be, and maybe tomorrow you're only getting 50 cents for the points or something like that. So making sure that you are using your points to, again, maximize your experience and minimize your spend.
Yeah, don't let them gather dust for years and years and years, because then when you go to use them again, you're just like, what? This is only worth 2 cents? What happened?
Or you can just gift them to me.
Yeah, gift them to me. If you're not going to use your points, I could use your points always. I am, always willing to take points to help me fund my trip to Italy. Thank you.
And I feel like when it comes to the points, like you said, there's the basic strategy when it comes to redemption. I know I love finding a good deal. And when I buy something, let's say I wanted a pair of shoes the other day, and I hunted the internet to find the best possible deals. I searched for coupons. I did all sorts of things. And it took me a couple of hours, but eventually I found the shoes that I wanted, and I spent the least amount of money for it. So I know for people that are in the points and miles game, it must be a thrill. I constantly see when they're oh, well, this airline is offering a 40% extra transfer bonus. And I know some people that they're fly, I have a friend who lives in New Jersey. We were talking one day and he was like, yeah, I got a flight for $80 and I flew to Boston. And then from Boston, I was able to fly business class to Paris. And I'm like, wait a minute, I would never think of doing it that way. I feel oh, I have to fly out of Newark or I have to fly out of JFK. So I can only imagine how exciting it is once you actually start to get into it and being able to find these super amazing deals. miles. So hopefully one day I'll get to that point. Right now I'm in the very, very basic beginner stage.
I believe in you. You will get there.
You'll get there.
But I got the points to burn, so one way or another.
Good
Yeah,
problem
you're
to
doing
have.
a good job. You're doing a good job with it. We were talking about points and miles all weekend, and Rosa's doing a good job with her points. I was really impressed by the amount you had. I was like, oh, I'm like, she's doing an awesome job. And if there's anything,
Well, I was telling Rachel how I used it for my daughter's tuition. So, like,
yeah,
as you know, college is expensive.
Yeah, and that's interesting because, like, you can, like, get the more points on spends that you would never even think of. Like, I know people who put the entirety of their rent on certain credit cards where they're not charged, like, a surcharge fee for doing that. And it's a really good way to, like, earn points if you're not going to get dinged with that with other fees that would counteract it. I know, like, when my brother used to live in New York, he would do that because he wouldn't get in trouble with the fees. So
I think it depends. I mean, there is one card that like allows you to put your rent on there, and it kind of sounds enticing, but there's a few things about it. Like it doesn't have a welcome bonus, so you're not earning a welcome bonus, and then it maxes out at $100,000 a year. At $100,000 a year, which for many people is like well beyond what they're going to pay in rent. But if you're like in New York City, it may not be. And then it goes, then you're not earning those points on rent anymore. And then that's one of those cards that counts against you with the other banks. It's just important. These are the things like that I always remind people that some of these things like sound good and there is a place for them. Like they may be good in a broader strategy, but being really careful about, when you're opening them. But it's so true that, being able, I mean, sometimes some people can pay their rent on a credit card and sometimes people can pay, there's a service that I use that allows you to pay business expenses that don't accept credit cards with a credit card. You have to pay a fee.
Oh, wow.
But, if you're going to try to hit a welcome bonus, like we were saying before, Rosa, like it can be a really good opportunity to then get the welcome bonus by putting, a big spend. If you're doing let's say you have a business expense that's like a construction project, you have tens of thousands of dollars and your contractor doesn't take cards, but then you decide to put it on use this account that allows you to get, put it on a credit card. That can be a really good use of your spending to then get a lot of points. And that can take you all over the world.
That's amazing. I feel like just by thinking outside the box, you can really get a ton of points. It just requires a little bit of like extra thinking. Oh my gosh, I feel like I have to go back to the drawing board now with this because I feel like I'm missing so many opportunities by not going, even just going on the shopping portal every single time. Sometimes I'm just like lazy and don't want to open my laptop. I'll have to remind myself, Rachel, you could get more miles just by opening your laptop and going through the shopping portal.
You can do it on your phone too. There's apps. There's all kind. I'll tell you after. I'll give you all
right. I'm gonna put the apps on my phone because this is what I need to spend more money. It's my thing. It's my vibe.
And like you said, it's all about being creative, but also obviously looking to make sure that it is worth your while. Because similarly, like I had mentioned earlier, when I was looking to hit that spend for my credit card, I wasn't sure if I was going to hit it. And then I even thought about that too. I was like, well, my mortgage company, you can't make your mortgage payment with like a credit card. But I had done some research online and I found like this website that would convert it into like a checking account. But then the amount that they were charging for like the transaction fee was just like too much. And for me, I just didn't think it was worth my while. But then I was like, wait a minute, I have another big expense, college tuition. We'll go that route.
I love it. Give it to the university.
Right. So Rachel, are you ready for some fun rapid fire questions?
Sure.
All right. So now you racked up these points and miles. Are you going to redeem it for flights or are you going to redeem them for hotels?
I have one card reward system that I use for flights and one that I use for hotels.
Very strategic.
Very, very smart. I love that. All right. So you're looking at your travel schedule for the year, Rachel. Do you decide to use your points for fewer business class flights or more flights, but in economy?
I spend a lot of time being really strategic about the order I open cards so I have enough points to fly business class for as many as I can find.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
I'm just going to give you my login and you're just going to book all my flights for me.
Like, I'm ready to just be like, here's my login to my account. Spend whatever you want. I'll deal with it. And then I too will fly business class and get over my fear of flying.
Exactly. Here are my dates. Here are my places. Rachel, book them.
I was afraid of flying too. I didn't mention that, but I used to be
What?
afraid of flying. Yes. I was,
Oh my gosh.
I didn't get on a plane till I was 16. I was terrified. Side
Oh,
note. Yeah.
oh my
So
gosh.
I did get over it.
I love that. Yeah, I never used to be afraid. And then in my 20s, I got afraid. So I'm trying to reverse it. Oh,
Business
thank
class.
you. Yeah, I'm sure. Well, business class does help. Getting that champagne helps and having a
Yeah.
flight attendant dote on you, all that stuff.
Yeah.
So, guys, if you're
Yep.
scared of flying too, just fly business class. It's fine.
Just my business.
Or be like me and just go to sleep while you're on the plane for like 10
I'm
hours.
so jealous that you could do that. It's amazing.
That's a good skill.
All right. I feel like we kind of answered this one, but transfer partners or portal bookings?
Definitely transfer partners.
Yeah, it's all
That's
about
so
that
true.
strategy.
Every time.
Maximize
Yeah.
those points.
So true.
Yeah.
So true. Don't use the portal, guys. Transfer partners are where it's at. All right. And I feel like we already answered this one too, but we'll just like say it just to reiterate. One premium card or a wallet full of niche cards?
Both. I mean, have a premium card, have the niche cards. I'm a big fan of a lot of cards. So, there's a place for a lot of different cards. One premium card is not going to cut it. You're not going to get very far.
I have to say, I wanted a Christmas tree last year. I wanted a new Christmas tree. And I was searching online, and I actually was like on the Michael's website, and they were like, if you apply for a credit card, you get 20% off plus an extra like 15%. I was like, sign me up because I needed the tree. Because Michael was like, you could only buy the tree, but it was like, I forgot. He told me like under $200. And it was impossible. So I ended up applying for a credit card with Michael's just so I can get a 20% coupon. And now I get like a $5 rewards like every couple of months. And I love it. So it's like, there's no such thing as a bad strategy, If it works for you, it makes you happy and got yourself a new tree, why not?
Build up all that credit, then your utilization rate will be low. That's what happened to me. That's my excuse for opening them up. It's like my credit score is great. So
I mean, I'm not getting any flights with my Michael's credit card, but
You're not getting any
like I
flights
said,
with
I
that
got a
credit.
discount on my tree, so
you
it was
got
worth
a
it.
Christmas tree.
Everyone has their goals. If your goal is a Christmas tree, you got your Christmas tree. If your goal is to travel with your points, that isn't the best choice. But again, you have to figure out where your goals are and make it happen. So you got your Christmas tree.
Exactly.
Love it. So, Rachel, before we start wrapping things up, I know you have a Substack. And I'm just getting into Substack myself, but yours seems really, really awesome. I'm ready to subscribe and jump on it to learn more about points and miles because I feel like there's so much to learn. Do you want to tell our listeners a little more about your Substack?
Yeah, I love Substack. I mean, so Substack is a newsletter. I realize a lot of people still don't quite know what Substack is. It's a newsletter, so it's like it will come to you, sign up, you subscribe, it'll come to your email. And then it also has kind of a blog format. So the posts that then have been emailed to you live on the blog. And there's like a social media component with being able to comment on people's posts and share them and all that. So my Substack is called The Point by Brooklyn Family Travelers. And I share a lot of points and miles intel. I share a lot of info about credit cards, obviously, and how to earn the most points. And I also cover places we've been and kind of stories about how my family's traveled and tips on how to travel better with your kids. So it's kind of a little bit of everything. My husband and I are also really big on getting babysitters when we travel. So we'll get babysitters in the evenings and we go out to dinner. So my travel tips are like a combination of things to do with kids and without kids, since we spend a lot of the time without them as well in the evenings while they're sleeping. So they don't know the difference. What do they care? But I mean, they know. They know
as long as they don't listen to this podcast and they don't know.
They know. No, they know. But they're, but they don't care. At the end of the day, they don't want to really be with us either. So it's fine. But, traveling's hard. We've got 2 active boys. We're all like, whoo, by the end of the day, we're like, okay, everybody can use a break. But the Substack is a lot of info. It really takes you from the beginning of points travel, like you were saying, where to start. We really go into the very basic essentials of how to get started, and then go into deep dives of how to really do some of this more intricate, complicated stuff. And then I offer a lot of support around credit card strategy and help people figure out which card is best for them. And I do all that mainly through the Substack, which is now number 48 in travel on Substack.
Love that for you. Congratulations.
Yeah.
You should be
That's
proud.
awesome.
That's really good work.
Thank you.
Yeah, I definitely want to check that out for sure. Well, Rachel, we really appreciate you being on the show. So, if there's one final tip that you would like to give to our listeners who are looking to get into points and miles, what would that be?
I would just say get started. Don't feel intimidated by it. I know we said this a lot of times, but I think it's really important to just get started and just remember that the that it wherever you are in this, whether you have a lot of money, a little bit of money, whatever it is, you can always make your points and miles work for you and make your spending work better for you and think of your points as kind of another currency that you can then use to book amazing trips.
I love that. That's awesome. Well, thank you again. We really appreciate it. And that brings us to the end of today's episode of Bon Voyage Besties. Rachel, thank you so much for joining us. Seriously, this conversation was everything. We need it for 2026 because Rosa and I want to plan some trips on points this year, and this has inspired us a lot. So, for everyone listening, if you want to dive deeper into Rachel's world, make sure to check out Brooklyn Family Travelers and her Substack bestseller, The Point by Brooklyn Family Travelers, where she breaks down exactly how to build unforgettable trips without the rich person budget, which is exactly what I need with the current amount in my bank account, but we won't talk about that. We hope this episode leaves you feeling empowered to start earning smarter, redeeming better, and planning travel that feels both exciting and achievable. We'll see you on the next episode of Bon Voyage Besties, where travel, friendship, and adventure take flight. And remember, guys, fly business class. It'll solve your fear of flying fears. So there's that too.
Don't hoard those points.
Thank
And until
you.
next time, Bon Voyage Besties. Thank you,
Bon
Rachel and
voyage.
Rachel.
Thank you.
Rachel squared.
Bye.
Bon Voyage Besties. We love you.